In this video, I'll walk you through the installation process for Conveyor version 5. On the screen, there are two different installer applications for Conveyor opened. Before I get into the details, I can provide some context to explain why there are two versions of the installer application and hopefully alleviate confusion this might otherwise cause. The release of both Rhino 8 and Revit 2025 mark a significant shift in the way that these two apps are developed. Previous versions of both of these apps ran on .NET Framework, while the new versions run on .NET Core, currently .NET Core 7 at the time of recording. And this creates a challenge for app developers who are creating programs like Conveyor that need to work both in the current versions of Revit as well as the previous versions. This installation process accounts for the differences between these programs. The installer on the left is a .NET Framework compatible version, and this is the version of Conveyor that will run when you are working in Revit versions 2021 through 2024, or if you are running Rhino inside Revit for those versions. The installer on the right is a .NET Core compatible version, and this is what will run when you are working in Revit 2025 or Rhino 8. Before you run these installers, it would be best if you remove any previously installed versions of Conveyor from your machine. You can do that by opening up the installer application, similar to these, on your machine. If you look in your search bar here and you type in Conveyor, you should be able to find those installers, and then you can select the Remove command. That will erase any of the files that are related to Conveyor from your computer. And if you need further instructions about how to do this, we provide those on our documentation website on the installation page for Conveyor. Scroll down to the bottom and you can see those instructions here. Next, you'll want to download the installer application. You'll receive a link to this whenever you purchase Conveyor. And immediately after you download, before you open up the application, you'll want to right-click on each one of these installers, the two installers here, and check their properties to see if the files have been blocked by your system. If they are blocked, there will be a checkbox at the bottom of the properties window here with the option to unblock the program. And it's important that you do that before you run the installer so that Conveyor can function properly. You want to check that for both of these installer files. Once you've done that, you can open these applications and they will appear on your screen as so. Another thing that you'll want to make sure that you do is update Rhino to version 8.12 or later. It would also be a good practice to update your version of Rhino inside Revit to the latest available. Then the next step is fairly straightforward. You'll open up each of the installer applications. You can do this one at a time and select the install option. If you're installing the trial version, you would select the install trial option. You'll receive a message similar to this. You might be prompted, if you haven't entered your license information yet, to enter it in, and then you can close out that dialog box because that's been installed. Then you can also select install on the next installer. Now Conveyor should be installed, and you can check that this was installed correctly by opening up either Revit or Rhino. So we'll start by opening up Revit 2025. We'll just open a blank project. Navigate to the Proving Ground tab in your ribbon menu, and the correct version, version 5.1 for 2025, is installed. From here we can start Rhino inside and check that the correct version is loading in Rhino as well. And here we can see that it's loading that plugin for its first use. We'll open up our Rhino UI, type in the command Conveyor V5, select our units, and check to see that these layers have been added to the model. And to refer back to the explanation at the beginning of this video, since we're running Rhino 8 inside of Revit 2025, which operates on .NET Core, this is the .NET Core compatible version of Conveyor. We can also check our Revit 2024 installation. We'll do the same process of opening a new project. navigate to the Proving Ground tab. Notice the version number here is 5.0.0.2 as opposed to 5.1 like in 2025. We'll start Rhino inside and we'll open our Rhino. And Conveyor did load. Again, the command for this is Conveyor version 5. Select our units. And this version of Conveyor, because we're in Revit 2024, which runs on .NET Framework, this version of Rhino, this session of Rhino, is running in a .NET Framework compatible session, and this is the .NET Framework compatible version of Conveyor. If you run into any issues during this installation process, reach out to our team at apps@provingground.io and we'll help walk you through it. I know it seems a little bit tricky, but as you can tell, it only took us a few minutes to get this set up, and now we can use Conveyor in versions 2021 through 2025 of Revit and in Rhino, whether it's being run in a .NET Framework compatible session or a .NET Core compatible session.